Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham and this is, of course, Talk, and we're going to be here for the next hour giving you the amazing array of plankery and absolute planks that are going on all this week. We've got Russell Quirk, we've got Candice Holdsworth, we've got Rafe, Heydel-Mankoo, and we've got Amanda Devlin from The Sun. So welcome to all of you. We might as well get straight to it, might we? Russell, who's your first nomination?
It's Sadiq Khan.
Is it?
An old favourite,
yeah,
sorry.
we do like Sadiq Khan, don't we?
He does kind of walk into these situations quite frequently.
He does.
And it's on the subject of flags.
Yes.
Now, of course, flags have been quite the topic over the last few months. Lots of flags around London, whether it's pride flags, festooning Regent Street and so on.
Trans
Palestinian flags, jihadist flags.
Yeah.
None of those have been banned. But Sadiq Khan has banned a certain flag. Guess what it is? It's the St George's Cross, our own flag.
Of course.
From taxis.
Yes.
So patriotic taxi drivers.
Is it because it's dangerous to drive around?
Yes. It's a distraction. So 500 flags down Regent Street, not a distraction at all. Loads of Palestinian and jihadi flags, not a distraction or any issue whatsoever. But if you happen to be a patriotic black cab driver, you're not allowed to display any flag, particularly the St George Cross. So you might ask yourself, why is this? Is it really a distraction? Or is it, by my contention, Sadiq Khan pandering to the woke left that think that the English flag is racist?
Yes, of course it is that.
Why does he hate the taxi drivers? He seems to have a real issue with them.
Yeah, I know.
We should need to defend them.
Yeah, I think, they should be defended.
Political. They're the last true Londoners left in London as your London cabbies.
Yeah. But he didn't have to do anything, right? He could have left it alone and not had this debate. And he's almost done it as kind of some virtue signalling thing to send a message to the left that, don't worry, I'm still there, I'm still on your side.
Yeah, it might be election purdah time, but don't worry, I can still make some political decisions, even though nobody can comment about it.
Well, it's because, of course, they see St George's Cross as being racist. You know, all the way back to Ken Livingstone, there's been a war on Englishness. You know, Ken Livingstone gave money for Diwali for a St Patrick's Day parade, refused to do one for a St George's Day parade.
Yeah.
And, and when we left the EU, Sadiq Khan lowered the EU flag from City Hall. And I said to him, you need to put the English flag there. London is actually the capital of England. And he completely ignored that. There's no English flag flying at City Hall. But you go to Edinburgh, Cardiff, there's a sea of saltires and dragons.
Yeah, they're proud.
But that's called progressive nationalism. But when the English do it, it's racist.
That's so true. It's amazing how crude and partisan it is as well. There's no subtlety there at all. It's so obvious what he's doing.
Can you imagine it being the case in the United States? Can you imagine a mayor of a city, even New York, even LA, saying we're going to ban the stars and stripes from your lawn because they're a bit distracting? Can you imagine it happening anywhere else?
It would not happen anywhere else. And also the fact that, it's dangerous to have a flag coming out of the car. I mean, there are car drivers driving around with flags coming out of their cars.
Well,
they're not being prosecuted, are they?
Most Saturdays
it's dangerous for cab drivers to do it. Surely it should be dangerous for everyone to do it.
Indeed, but he's not banning any other flag on any other car.
No, isn't that
Go
funny?
figure.
And also, have you seen those?
Labour politician will be pleased. The Emily Thornbury.
Oh, yes.
She'll be really pleased
Yes.
that get rid of those flags because remember she posted that picture of the.
They're terribly snobbish about football as well, a lot of lefties. They don't like to talk about football because it's full of hooligans.
Though they always
full of hooligans.
rock up to England games, they have that picture taken in the park. Always,
yes.
When they have their
England shirt,
did you see the thing about Keir Starmer? Keir Starmer, for the first England match, was in a pub watching it, standing next to Angela Rayner and a couple of other people, and everyone else was wearing some kind of English regalia, but he was wearing a plain white T-shirt. And you just go, you've obviously done that deliberately because you didn't want to be seen wearing the cross of St George.
Maybe because it could be held against you by your woke
people
mates.
would say, no, you're wearing the racist
That's because
flag.
he might change his mind at some point, so he...
Well...
halfway through, depending on who's winning.
And he'll Photoshop himself, different.
Well, he was at Taylor Swift this week as well, wasn't he? He had to put a picture out, which was rather trumped, you have to say, by Prince William. He went the same night and managed to get backstage and get a selfie with Taylor Swift. And meanwhile, he was standing about a million miles away at the top of Wembley Stadium, looking down at the
Taylor Swift's gone, Keir who?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Very funny.
Sadiq Khan, the never short of plankisms.
Yes, I mean, I think we haven't had him on for a while, so welcome back, Sadiq. Well done. Candice, who have you got for us?
So I've got David Tennant, the actor, who's made all the wrong headlines this week for attacking the Equalities Minister, Kemi Badenoch. He stood up at an awards ceremony for which he'd won an award for being a celebrity ally to LGBT issues, apparently.
Was it an LGBT award by any chance?
Yes. And he went up... Yes, exactly. And he went up there and made a very moronic contribution to the debate by saying he wishes that Kemi Badenoch didn't exist and that she should just shut up.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because no other woman would be fair game like this to people on the left.
Absolutely not. Certainly no other black woman. Let's have a look at the clip.
Until we wake up and Kemi Badenoch doesn't exist anymore. I don't wish ill of her, I just wish her to shut up.
You know, Doctor Who, the hell do you think you are?
Yeah.
You know.
But can you imagine if a right-wing commentator or
Well,
a
if you said that about Diane Abbott.
Well,
Yes.
if you went on your show 7 o'clock one morning and
Yeah.
said exactly the same thing, you know, of any black woman, you'd be called a racist and a misogynist.
Absolutely.
But because it comes from the left with good intentions, apparently,
Yes.
Even though effectively
kind.
it's calling for her to be exterminated and eradicated, it's okay.
Do you know, I noticed though, I don't know if you did, when he said, you know, if there was no more Kemi Badenoch, it didn't exist or something, he suddenly caught himself when they all cheered
Yes,
and thought, I better try and qualify that because it sounds like I want her dead. You know? So then he suddenly went, I don't wish any ill on her. Oh, really?
Oh, really? Why'd you say it then?
Yeah.
Freudian.
But when people talk about the toxicity in the debate, and this is like the big theme of Labour politicians now, we need to take the toxicity out of it, it's actually usually coming from one side.
Yeah.
And it's always towards the women who have actual real conviction,
Yeah.
like Kemi Badenoch, like J.K. Rowling. I mean, the people who really stand up for things, and they're the ones who get attacked for
the
it.
enemies of apparently everybody apart from actual women.
Yes.
Right? Who think actually they're quite good. But here's what Kemi Badenoch had to say about that. I will not shut up, she tweeted this. I will not be silenced by men who prioritise applause from Stonewall over the safety of women and girls. A rich, lefty, white male celebrity so blinded by ideology he can't see the optics of attacking the only black woman in government by calling publicly for my existence to end.
Brilliant
It's
tweet.
such
I mean,
a brilliant
she
response,
absolutely smashed him around and, you know, he was left crawling around on the floor.
Nailed it,
But what
Kemi.
an
Nailed
absolute moron.
But how does he not see that that's the entire problem about that debate is the fact that, you know, we've got men speaking up about an issue that it is about women. It's about how women feel in safe spaces.
Right.
And for him to then go on stage and actually disregard everyone who feels a bit worried, a bit concerned about this huge issue, it was sickening. And I think the reaction actually on Twitter, which is normally maybe a little bit left-in, you would imagine they would all agree with him. Actually, it was calling him out because he just...
Even Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer
over
were
the line.
united on this one. They both said, you know, this is a ridiculous thing to say, a disgraceful thing to say, and you should never have said it.
These actors, they just need an applause, anything for a round of applause to make their ego better, and that's, you could see that that's what he was doing.
But also the thing, I think he's done himself no end of harm really, because people used to look at David Tennant as probably a pretty good Doctor Who actually, if you like that sort of thing. And a reasonably sensible individual, but he seems to have kind of lost the plot on this whole issue.
Because a lot of people make a fool out of themselves on this issue because they haven't looked very deeply into it, and they tend to have a very simplistic understanding of it. It's good people versus bad people, when it's actually a very nuanced issue. And someone like Kemi Badenoch, when you hear her talk about it, you realise just how seriously she takes it. She's very well informed on it, and there's no way that you could just dismiss her as hateful once you've actually listened to her.
No, absolutely not.
Exactly right. Let's move on. Rafe, you've got some milk for us.
Yes, well, there we go. There's an opening line, isn't there? Well, look...
Not the milk of human kindness, I must say.
Tomorrow morning, when you're having your cornflakes or your morning cuppa, just make
of you.
sure that you don't pour too much white supremacy on them.
Yes.
Because this is where we are. This is a new study out by the Oxford Science Museum that's trying to link milk to racism and colonialism.
Right.
You know,
Of course they are.
Your pints of cow juice in the fridge is oppressing people all over the world, and it has to stop. And that's what this museum is out to do. Now, it's claiming essentially that, you know, large parts of the world have a high degree of lactose intolerance, despite the fact that everybody is breastfed on their mother's milk, and that you know, milk was a tool by which the West was able to conquer the globe. It is quite remarkable. I mean, you know, it's so ludicrous it doesn't even bear talking about. But they had an exhibition about this also, the Welcome Collection, where they pointed out that in 1958 there was the launch of the famous drink a pint of milk a day campaign, which Tony Hancock immortalised in The Blood Donor. And that was the same year as the Notting Hill riots. They're trying to infer that there's some connection between those two things. I mean, we're paying for this. And this comes out of the...
How much does it cost us as a taxpayer to establish that milk's racist?
Yeah, they haven't released the funding, but it's the Arts and Research Council, you know, and what we have to do, you know, is to get serious in this world, is stop funding all of these woke bodies and woke institutions.
Yes. Also, what are they doing at the Oxford Museum if this is the kind of nonsense they're coming up with? I mean, shouldn't they be there to actually sort of... Oh, look, there's a glass of milk. Oh, thank you very much indeed, Harrison.
They should be curating artefacts.
Careful with the old white supremacy overload. But I mean,
well, my jacket's probably racist too.
It probably is, yeah. But this is the thing, you know, surely they should be preserving history as opposed to trying to destroy it. I mean,
yes.
It seems to be that they keep coming up with reasons why something's bad rather than why something else is good.
Isn't there also a view that museums themselves are racist, of course?
Well, of course they are.
Because of the artefacts
they have to
that are there from
decolonise it all.
colonial time.
Well, I think this is not the first time this particular museum's been in hot water, if you'll pardon the expression, because they're always coming up with these ludicrous kind of, professorial rants about absolute rubbish. That they just, it's almost like they've dreamed it up in the back of a fag packet in the pub.
Yeah.
But of course, they probably don't drink or smoke.
I mean, Oxford's the centre of all this. The Pitts Rivers Museum returned
Yes.
some of the Benin bronzes, and the Benin bronzes were commissioned by African slave owners, and they represent African slave owners, and yet they're revering these things. Edward Colston's statue has to come down, but they revere the most brutal slave-trading nation in the...
Pitts River also did that thing, did they not, last week, where they had some masks, which they'd taken from some African tribe, which was apparently, I think, somewhere in Nigeria, and the masks could never be seen by women.
It's ridiculous.
Because they were used in some kind of ritual, which women weren't allowed to see, right? So what do? They bring them to Britain, and then they say, well, we can't show you them because women aren't allowed to see them.
Yeah.
And you go, sorry?
It's woke misogyny.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But because it's a Nigerian tribe saying it,
It's okay.
that's fine.
That's fine.
That's bizarre, isn't it?
That type of misogyny is all right, is it?
Yes.
You lose track.
I mean, I want to get one of these masks because I don't know what happens. If you wear it in front of a woman, what do you have some kind of power over them? I don't know.
Well, they fall at your feet, Mike, I guess.
Well, they did anyway. I mean, I don't need a mask. If I needed a mask for that, I'd be wearing one. But
If you hear a bang, that's because I've just fallen.
but it is. There seems to be one museum after another, particularly in Oxford, where they just come up with all this nonsense.
Well, you remember when I was young, librarians, museum curators were the most timid, placid people in the world. Now they're sort of the Praetorian Guard of the woke movement.
No, now they're activists. The Emma Thompsons, the David Tennant.
Emma Thompson, I forgot about her.
Yeah.
We'll have to give her
flying
a
over first
I was
class
thinking about her with the David Tennant stuff, because, she goes on about the climate change, and then she's on picture on a yacht, or she's flying across the road.
Because she was here last weekend.
She's a worthy plank.
She is a worthy plank. We might have to make a last-minute adjustment.
I feel like you need to take a sip of that and wink at the camera or something.
Very amusingly, she was pictured on a yacht, or a yacht, wasn't she?
It was not just any yacht, it was a $200 million yacht.
Yeah. But that's okay.
That's fine.
Because I don't think they emit any carbon, do they, yachts?
Well, they do when you put the engine on. Yeah, they do, when there isn't any wind. Anyway, we've got some white supremacy for you, Rafe. Have a look at this.
With all the work left to do, I better get some more Borden's milk. There's just nothing like it for lots of get up and go.
Yep, Borden sure is the milk with the muscles in it.
It's the sweetest tasting milk, too.
How come anything so good for you tastes so good?
'Cause it's Borden's. Good, sweet Borden's milk.
Even bigots.
I see them all wearing KKK.
I'm going to say the new KKK brand of milk there.
Yeah, perhaps you could reenact that for us, Rafe. How can something so good for you taste so good?
How can something so good for you be so racist?
Yeah, absolutely. That was obviously an advert for milk from the 60s in America. Before.
Well, this is one of the other things that the museum is saying, is that all the advertising around milk over the decades has exclusively featured white people.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, until the 1990s, Britain was 90% white, British, 95% white.
And also, that's not true, because I've seen adverts for milk which haven't been made by white people. This is ridiculous. They just go looking for this stuff now.
So do you think this is something else that's going to be banned on the tube, like Sadiq Khan? Sorry, going back to my old friend.
Yeah.
He's banned fast food ads. He's banned sugar-related ads. Do you think now we're going to see milk ads banned?
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a bit too racist.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, a bit racist. Yeah, unbelievable. Amanda, over to you.
Right, so I've got this activist that I'm putting up for this award today because it's from the Youth Demand Group, and we can't name him. There's legal issues ongoing, but basically he climbed into Rishi Sunak's family home and the lake there. And then he goes into the lake and I'm very embarrassed about saying this on TV, but
how are you going to put this?
He drops his trousers.
He drops his trousers and he does a number 2.
Right.
Oh my God.
In the lake.
They are children.
What is wrong with these people?
Some kind of mental disorder there, do you think?
These are the same people, the Youth Demand people, who stood, I sort of discovered them because they've got the two-pronged attack. You know, they don't just want climate change to be the focus of their protest. They also want the Free Palestine.
Oh yeah,
so they've got the dual kind of two big issues of the
double anarchy. I think they
double anarchy
of
the anarchists. You know, we must have a Free Palestine. Oh, and by the way, can you sort out the climate as well? While you're
it's upsetting though, because the fact that it's a Youth Demand Group, and you know, is that the youth now? Is this what young people, that's how they argue their points? And that makes me frustrated, because then it's like, actually, the rest of the population is going to look at them and say, well, you don't know what you're talking about, that's what you've got to do. A lot of dirt.
Well, very possibly. But they are, I mean, they're insanely kind of obsessed. But they are insanely obsessed. I mean, the first time I came across them, it was when they were doing something, I can't remember what they did. They painted something red, or they'd thrown something over something anyway. But they were standing, there was this one guy who stood next to the woman who was speaking, and she was ludicrous and ridiculous. It's like, we're very angry and we won't stop until, it was like a toddler saying, I'm not leaving, having a temper tantrum. And this other guy was just standing there staring into the camera, looking like the guy from Sparks. The guy from Sparks who never sang, never said anything. It was him, And I just don't know what they're bothering for.
They just don't want to have, so they've got, it's all social media brains, so they just need that clickbait and they need that moment to go viral.
It's not about the so-called cause, it's about them. That's why he's had it filmed.
Do they even care about that? I don't know. But if they did, you've got to form a coherent argument to then go out and actually get people to trust in you and to what are you going to do about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we all just laugh at him and call him a plank.
Yeah, it's all filtered through the lens of TikTok and those sorts of politics. It's like very, 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 very crude and very lowbrow, and it's all about, like you say, just getting that viral moment. And so they are totally incentivized by that now.
But the thing is that gets me about this is that this chap's in his early 20s. His name has been widely reported all over the media. For the next 40 years, any prospective employer who does some due diligence, searches his name, will know that he's the man who took a dump.
If he doesn't win Plank of the Week, can he win Plop of the Week?
Plop of the Week, very good. Plop of the Week, for
what
sure.
reputation?
That was his idea, not mine. Anyway, we're going to move on. We're going to move on, because coming up we're going to be getting some warnings about the heat, because it's been very hot this week, and also something to do with the House of Commons and the drinking habits. But also, I'm going to be telling you about a doctor that I met this week. He doesn't work very much, to be honest. That's all coming up in Plank of the Week. Here are the candidates for North West Essex. Kemi Badenoch, Conservative and Unionist Party. Izzy Waite, Labour Party. Grant St Clair Armstrong, Reform UK. Smita Rajesh, Liberal Democrat. Edward Gildia, Green Party. Eric Bonino, Independent. Andrew David Green, Independent. Nico Omilana, Independent. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are well underway. We've already got some really, really, really good suggestions. I've got one now which is a bit from left field, because it was on my show that it happened. And some of you might have heard of this guy because he's been on Talk before. Dr. Dean Eggett is his name. And we started talking about, some of the, arguments people are having over health policy. Labour are going to try and, get 40,000 more appointments in hospitals. They're also going to try and change the rush for the GP surgery at 8 o'clock every morning. Because,
That's easy.
Yeah, very simple. Yeah, no problem at all. Just pull it out of that box over there. Anyway, so I started talking to this guy about his GP's work, and I said, the problem for me is that, there's an awful lot of GPs in this country who don't really do an awful lot of GPing. And quite often people say to me they can't get an appointment because they're understaffed, or the receptionist is off, or something like that. And I said an awful lot of them as well, for one reason or another, only work about 3 days a week. And he said, yeah, I'm one of them. And I was like, sorry?
So what's he doing the other
the other 2 days, he claims that he does something called NHS pathway work, which is sort of basically planning projects, planning kind of, how people should be taken from one place to referral to, it's basically work that a doctor shouldn't be doing.
Logistics.
I said, well, you've spent 7 years training to be a doctor. Don't you think you should just be a doctor?
Yeah.
Which is a fair point. I felt like he couldn't really answer.
Given that no one can get a GP appointment, would be quite a good idea to be a doctor.
Yeah, I said, imagine, and I said, I used the analogy when I used to work in newspapers, if you could get somebody who bought the newspaper once a week to buy it 3 times a week, circulation would more than triple. It would sort of, quadruple, more than, the number of days. So I said the same thing to him. I said, look, if you've got, 1 million people who can't get an appointment, and every single doctor who works 3 days a week suddenly works 4, you'd get rid of all those in a week, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, look, my uncle, who's 96 now, he qualified as a GP in the 1950s, who worked for 50 years as a doctor, 5 days a week, plus doing evening house calls.
Right.
So who does evening house calls?
There's really a chance he could come back, do a couple of days.
Yeah.
I trust him more than some of these chaps, I tell you.
But this is the other thing. Then I spoke to another doctor this week off the back of this, and I said, what is the problem with these doctors who say they're going to burn out? I said, didn't they know what the job entailed? Did they not know it was going to be quite hard? Did they not know that they'd have to see one patient after another? Some woman rang in and said, my husband's a doctor. And she sort of ran through his day. He has to do this, and then he has to sign that, and then he has to, have a
what
telephone.
Do you mean, like a job?
Like a doctor. I said, sounds like a doctor. Yeah. Sounds like he's doing all the things that doctors are supposed to do, and that's what you do. Yeah. And if you do it for 10 hours or 12 hours, 3 days a week, that's not enough. Yeah. Sorry. And I'm sorry if you're getting burned out by doing a job.
So they think it's the hardest job in the world.
They do.
Therefore, they can only do it 60% of the time.
Yes. And when go figure, no other business you could do that. It's like me saying, I'm going to do 5 days a week, but I'm going to do 3 on the air and 2 off air planning the show.
Reminds me of that rather pathetic talk show host on another channel.
Yes.
Said that their job was the hardest.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember
I do remember that, yeah. It was also a plank.
Yeah. But it's why A&E is so insane these days, because you just can't get in to see a GP.
Right.
I mean, like, when one of my children is sick, I have to, call 5 different places to get an appointment somewhere. And often at the end, they'll say, oh, just go to A&E. And then you'll sit there for, 5 hours.
One of my kids has spent about a week trying to get a very minor thing sorted out with his doctor. Can't get a doctor's appointment. Then they said, it turns out you've been unregistered because you've gone to university somewhere else in the country, so now you're no longer registered with us, so you have to re-register.
He still lives at home.
Yeah, you've got to re-register. Well, can we re-register now? No, you can't do that. The registration person's off today. Have to ring tomorrow. Oh, they were off again tomorrow. So he's still waiting.
Yeah, they're ringing, you can't get through anyway.
Can't get through. And then finally did get through, I think, on about day 7. No, I haven't got any appointments.
But
it's ridiculous.
Where's the logic in everyone having to ring? So you've got, 100 people all ringing at 8 a.m. And 2 receptionists.
Constantly getting a busy signal.
Which is a logistical nightmare, rather than just doing it on an app or on the website.
Well, they want some people to do it online in some places, but of course a lot of older people don't know how to do that.
Or I guess if you make an appointment online, you've got even more chance of not turning up, because a big proportion of GP appointments, of course, part of the problem is that people just don't turn up. Maybe just charge people.
But they take the online option off the website, because we have that at our GP, and it gets so many people applying online that they take the option away. Right. So you get to about 8:05 a.m. and they're like, sorry, not taking any more appointments today.
One organisation that doesn't seem to work in any way, shape or form is the NHS. I mean, lots of places in the country have got problems, but the NHS seems particularly bad.
Yeah.
And GPs seem particularly worse of all of the things, because, a lot of people will say, I went to the NHS, an emergency operation, they were brilliant. Yes, that does happen. Well, but it's at the lower levels of, GP surgeries. It just don't work.
But dare I venture, it's because we put it on a pedestal. Well, we don't.
Yeah.
The country puts it on a pedestal.
So well, they don't anymore so much, but they're beginning to now realise.
They pay the most, don't they, right?
Yeah.
Over 100 grand for the most part.
Yeah.
And of course, there's no accountability.
Also, it's now turned into a sort of service where they expect you to thank them for doing the job that we pay them to do.
Yeah.
It's kind of gone completely bonkers. Instead of we're no longer the customers, and we're not the people that are ever right. We're the people who are now in the wrong for actually bothering to go to hospital. We shouldn't come to hospital. I was mentioned this, during COVID. And then somebody sent me a picture of the GP surgery somewhere near Rugby, where the sign on the outside said, "Please do not enter if you're feeling unwell." And you're going, it's a doctor. What do you want from me? I'm not coming to say hello.
How fun is that?
Bizarre. Anyway, over to you, Russell.
To catch something.
You might have to go to the doctor this week. It's very hot.
Well, I can say my second nomination is the Met Office, because summer has arrived. I don't know if you noticed over the last few days. So obviously we've had a pretty woeful spring and summer. All of a sudden, summer's arrived, but what I would call a pretty ordinary summer. And it's been as high as, I think, 26 or 27 degrees centigrade.
Yeah, I mean, it did get to 29 this week.
It did get to 29. So as a consequence, of course, what we now have from the Met Office, which is why they're planks, is the obligatory health warning, the caution, the emergency that is, of course, it's all part of global boiling, which we all know is going on. And the it's ridiculous, isn't it? And the message comes out from the Met Office, be careful, wear a hat, take water with you, sun cream, and so you think, hang on a sec.
It's not the Sahara, is it?
Well, 2 things. First of all, how have we survived as a species for 100,000 years? But also, what do most of us do when it comes to the summer holidays?
Right.
We jump on a plane, we fly south to find hotter weather.
Preferably somewhere where it's about 38.
Yes. Yeah. And what you don't see on a travel brochure is, you might want to go to Mallorca or even Egypt or even the Caribbean.
Yes.
But be careful, because it's going to be really hot. Well, of course it's hot. We want it to be hot. It doesn't mean we're all going to die, does it? So Met Office...
Well, it does apparently. It does
apparently it does,
Sorry.
So the Met Office, my recommendation is that they should be Plank of the Week, just because it's so woefully pathetic and woke and nannying.
It is.
We don't need it.
But of course, that it's not just the Met Office, because we're going to show you now a little clip from Sky News talking about sunshine.
There is a degree to which, as a society, we need to maybe reevaluate our relationship with heat. I'm thinking of our European cousins, for example, who have dealt with temperatures like this for a lot longer than we have, and they've had siestas in the afternoon, or they've worked different hours to get away from the really persistent temperatures. As Brits, do we need to maybe change the way we approach the summers now, do you think?
No. What are you talking about? We don't need to think about it at all. What, she wants the whole nation to go to sleep at 2 o'clock.
Also, have you ever seen such earnest interviewing? It's really changed the way we live.
Yeah.
What, because it's got warm for a couple of days?
Well, we should
to be honest, I would like that, because I'd have like a bottle of wine at lunch like they do in Italy or Spain or wherever, and then just go for a little siesta.
Yeah. No, I don't believe this siesta thing is actually just a siesta, because they shut down and they never reopen. How many times
but you know why it happens in Spain and Italy? Yeah. Because they all get drunk at lunch.
Well, no, but also you drive
the doctors would love it. They'd work for a couple of hours.
You went down that way recently, didn't you, in your car? And I mean, you go drive through these little villages and places in France. Everything's boarded up, permanently boarded up.
Yeah.
You know what they're doing behind the boarding, you know, behind the hoarding and stuff. But I mean, there's never anything going on.
Yeah, but the worry is now, based on your nomination just now about milk being racist, is that we've now triggered probably the public sector. They're probably going to spend billions of pounds now looking into whether we should close down in the summer as a nation.
Well, I mean, the Work From Home Brigade don't need any more encouragement not to come to work. You know, I can't come into this. Why? It's too hot.
But everyone's so afraid of the sun now that they're putting sun cream on in winter when you don't need it. So you've actually got like dermatologists saying, no, you need vitamin D from the sun.
So you come from a hot country, right?
Yes.
What happens there? Because it's hotter.
Well, people just stay out of the midday sun.
What, by way of common sense?
Yes, that's
it. They don't need to be told by the government.
Exactly.
Wow.
I mean, isn't that incredible? Yeah. Also, of course, the other thing that people are being told to do is to wear sunglasses even when it's not sunny, because you know your eyes need the protection of the UV,
of course,
whatever it is,
because of what, eye cancer.
Because you get eye cancer.
But this is all about money, isn't it?
Blind.
It's the sunglasses.
I mean, it's not the only thing that makes you go blind.
The sunglasses industry, they'll benefit.
Oh, of course.
You know, the cream, if it's doing sun cream, they benefit.
Yes.
That's all what it's about.
I bet you will find out that a lot of this nonsense is sponsored by the people that are making money out of it.
Well, I was born in the summer of '76.
Yes.
And we still haven't beaten that summer, you know, despite all the talk about global warming and so forth. But this country is famous for exaggerating any bit of weather that's not normal or mild. I lived in Canada for many years with minus 35 degrees,
snow,
minus 40 wind chill. And over here, you get in the newspapers, Arctic blast when it's minus 3.
Yeah, I know.
And now they've even changed the weather graphics. Anything in the mid-20s, everything is red, on the map. You know,
absolutely.
Project.
I know.
And of course, the cold kills a load more people than the heat does.
Of course it does.
I've probably seen this before. Some of you may have seen this before, but there is one particularly brilliant weather forecast that you should watch now. Do you know, I've always wanted to do the weather, so now it's my chance. And here it is. Apparently, it's sunny everywhere except in Glasgow, where it's never sunny, because even in the middle of May, it's always raining there. Manchester looks quite good as well. That's a bit further down, actually, isn't it? Yeah, down there. That's Manchester. Over there a bit is over towards where all the migrants come in across the channel, and the weather's a bit choppy, so there might not be as many of them coming as you would like. But listen, the thing about doing the weather is that in Britain, you never know whether it's going to be right or not. You don't have to get it right because nobody else does. So frankly speaking, I'm telling you that over the next 4 days, we're going to have changeable weather, right? Which pretty much means it could be anything. It could be doing anything at all, from snow to sleet to rain to very, very sunny. Here in London, it's very sunny, very hot, hotter than Ibiza, in fact, in some cases. And away down there in Cornwall, right, there's people surfing. Look out for Matt Hancock. And just be careful out there and always be prepared. Take a pair of mittens, a woolly hat and a bikini.
Is that your audition?
No, for some reason, I remember Chuck wanted me to do the weather report just because we should do it, just for a laugh. And they were supposed to do, we did it in that small studio before it was properly made up. And there was supposed to be, and it was a green screen, there was supposed to be something in front of me to show me where everything was.
Well, you were pointing.
Of course, it didn't work. So I'm like pointing at things like I did completely.
But I bet you ad-libbed it, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, there was no script, absolutely not. Right, Candice, over to you. Sue Gray.
Sue Gray.
Everyone keeps telling me is the world's most powerful woman.
Exactly.
I'm fed up of hearing her name.
I know. Who is this person? So suddenly Sue Gray is the most all-powerful person, this hitherto unknown civil servant who she came to prominence with the whole Partygate saga.
She did.
So she wrote that dossier all about everything that was going on, and suddenly everything she had to say was the most important thing in the world. Well, the Mail, interestingly enough, have spoken to some sources close to her who have said that she would close down all the bars in Westminster. Right. She's denied it, Labour's denied it, that she ever said that.
What's it got to do with her?
Well, that's the thing. The neo-Puritanism of it really bothers me. But it's also, like, who are these unknown people, these unelected bureaucrats who get to pronounce on everything like this? And suddenly we have to take them all so seriously. And it seems like it's a common theme now. You know, you've just got all these quangos, committees, that's government by quangos, committees, and unelected bureaucrats.
Yes.
So she's not even a legislator, is she? She's chief of staff.
No,
What's it got
to
do with her?
She was hired as chief of staff. She's not technically not even a civil servant, I don't think.
No. She's working for the party.
She now works for the party, right?
Yeah. I bet she's teetotal, isn't she?
The great irony here is she used to be a pub landlady in an earlier life. Can you imagine? You know, the last call at 1 in or something.
What was it, like lemonade only?
But she doesn't even understand, the history and traditions of Parliament, because the only people who can make that decision are the Speaker of the Commons, the Speaker of the Lords, and the Lord Great Chamberlain.
Yes.
It's not up to the government to decide what happens within the palace precincts.
Right. Presumably, even if they did want to do it, there'd have to be a vote on it in some way, wouldn't there?
Can you imagine them voting for no alcohol in the Palace of Westminster?
That's never going to happen.
I bet you they would. The journalists would all be in a terrible place.
I would be devastated.
You go down there quite a lot.
What would you do, Amanda?
I'd go and protest.
Do they still have the rule that they keep the bar open as long as there's business going on on the floor of the house?
No, it can be late. There's a cut-off point of last orders, but then you can the actual bar's open, then you can stay in there.
Right.
But I think with the point about Sue Gray, it's mainly not even it's stupid because it's just killing fun. It's just what you're doing. But the other point is it could actually be quite dangerous because if you think about it, you've got people who they're in this. You know, it's a bar. People are choosing to go in there, choosing to have a few drinks to relax. They've got very late night voting. But imagine if all of that drinking is then banned and it's then taken to places where it can't be monitored. So maybe it goes to MPs' offices.
Yeah.
And so you've got a place where actually people are consuming alcohol. There's nobody around to be held accountable. And it's going to lead to more problems, if anything. And I think that's what is a massive worry. I mean, it'll never happen. It's just a load of rubbish. I have that with everything crossed.
Maybe there's an argument for the drink within the palaces of Westminster not to be subsidised at the expense of the taxpayer.
Yeah, some people say that.
I mean, I don't understand why. Although I guess MPs just put it on their expenses anyway, don't they? So it doesn't really matter. We pay for it one way or the other.
And also,
which seems wrong to me.
Probably, yeah. But I mean, the subsidisation probably you would find it goes all the way through the civil service. You probably find those canteens in every single government department, loaded down with drink and food and all sorts of other things we never really see. I've never been inside the Home Office, I know what it's like. But I bet you they've got their own catering company. I bet you they've got subsidised everything.
Well, and I suspect no matter what Sue Gray says, if you've got a load of raging alcoholics as MPs, they're going to continue to be raging alcoholics, aren't they, even if you shut the bars down?
Absolutely. And can't you just
they're all going to the old the Carlton Club, aren't they?
It links back though with every plank really. It's just about personal responsibility, and it's why does the government have to step in and nanny every single issue? Why can't it be that actually you can make a decision to go to that bar or not go to that bar?
Yes.
Well, the issue is also if you close down those pubs and bars, they have to still be near the precinct to come back for votes. So they're going to be at the Red Lion or the Speaker, and they're going to be putting on... We don't want to have a bunch of drunken MPs taking up our pub space.
They'll be stretching them in, but not because they're actually ill, because they can't wake up from the alcoholic coma that they're in. Right, now, coming up, we've got some more to go. We've got some election-related stuff, which is good. We've got Disney executive caught on video saying something that he shouldn't have said. And also, of course, I'm going to go and mention the football as well, because, I mean, the football has been plank-filled, hasn't it? Coming up on Plank of the Week, all of that. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. So, we've got a pretty good selection already, but we've still got about 3 to do, actually. Rafe, over to you with some betting news.
Yes, so, this has been a pretty dismal and dreary election, but there have been some moments of black comedy. We had Rishi Sunak in the pouring rain trying to prove to us all that he really is a wet Tory. We had...
that wasn't even the low point.
No, well, then he went to Belfast to the Titanic Quarter in order to make sure we all know that he's a sinking ship. And now, along the same lines of political pratfalls, we have this Labour candidate, Kevin Craig, who has betted against himself winning in his constituency against his Tory rival. And, at the point when the Tories are going down to their biggest defeat ever, it takes a huge degree of lack of self-confidence and self-belief to actually be a Labour candidate and vote, and bet against yourself. I mean, you know...
And this is after, of course, all of the other betting stuff came out the week before about the various people who were sort of close to Rishi Sunak, who appeared to have put a bet on something that they knew, but nobody else did.
And there's and that's exactly the difference here, because the reality is, of course, that was insider trading, essentially. These were people who knew something that the rest of us didn't know.
Right.
And if, you know, in terms of, you know, whether or not you're going to win a constituency, I mean, that's pretty much common knowledge. We all have access to polling.
Right.
I mean, unless you're secretly planning to drop your trousers on the news, or, you know, if you know there's a scandal coming around the corner, then that could be perhaps insider information.
Yeah.
But to give up a £90,000 salary just to win a few hundred in a bet is...
But, you know, I said election, you know, this is the sort of typical MP's reaction to something.
But this is the same. Wasn't he also a donor to the Labour Party? He donated a lot of money as well.
Yes, he did. And actually, I found that quite interesting because, you know, I didn't know that was one of the routes that you could get into to being selected. But, you know...
What, you're suggesting that you could buy a candidacy?
Apparently, yeah.
Wow.
Well, obviously that would be pure speculation. I mean, couldn't possibly say such a thing. But the whole gambling story has also gone a bit Puritan, hasn't it? Because it started off with this idea that, you know, MPs shouldn't be gambling on things that they have insider knowledge of. Fair enough. I think everybody would say that's probably a criminal offence. Might well be. But just having a bet.
Yes. People
started to sort of say, well, why are MPs even betting? They shouldn't be allowed to go betting. Well, they go horse racing, they go to football. Yes. You know, you want to bet on who's going to win Wimbledon. You happen to be an MP. I don't see why you shouldn't be able to do that.
I know. Keir Starmer totally overreacted.
Yeah.
I think so. And suddenly he kind of leaps on these bandwagons.
But I think he's got this. But that's his instinct, isn't it?
Yes.
As a sort of prosecutor, he's just immediately ban something.
Knee-jerk overreaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's quite hilarious, though, that he would back himself to lose. I mean, at least the Conservatives were all backing, you know, a winning prophecy.
Although there was one Conservative that came out today who was also backing the opponents, which, you know, you might say is slightly less plankish, because he's probably right.
Well,
he'll actually win something.
He bet £8,000 that he was going to lose. I mean, if I had £8,000, I'd bet on him losing as well. That's pretty much not an open... That's not a secret.
But that's the other weird thing about a lot of these bets. It's not like, unless they've been doing an awful lot of it over a course of time, and maybe they've made quite a lot of money, they're betting sort of 100 quid here and 100 quid there, which, you know, with the policies...
And the odds aren't going to be very good.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, even on £8,000, you're only going to make a few £100, you know, because the odds are so clearly against you. So I'm not even sure why you would bother betting.
So it's not like a sort of, you know, career-ending amount of money,
but from a stupidity point of view, I mean, it's really bad optics. It might not be wrong and it might not be illegal, that's all questionable, but it's just a really stupid thing to do from an optics point of view. Just looks bad.
But I'm convinced this has happened every single election. I'm sure under Major, under Blair, this has always happened. You know, Guido Fawkes actually reported that the head of public policy at the Gambling Commission has been working for the Labour Party, been on in many campaigns. So there was somewhere a leak on all of this, and it's just the fact that it's become public knowledge for the first time now at the worst possible time for the Tories.
I mean, again, I'm sure that betting goes on all the time, but it's a question of when you're betting and what you know. But I mean, if you're stupid enough to bet the day before the election's announced that the announcement is going to happen the next day, it's not just luck, is it?
No.
You know, we're not going to say, yeah, I just had this feeling somehow.
Well, some might call it cheating.
Some might call it cheating, and as I say, it might end up being actually borderline illegal, but we shall see. Amanda, you've got a Disney executive for us.
Disney, yeah. I mean, this is a kind of a story where you know it's going on, but actually there's now some video evidence. So he was filmed undercover. His name's Michael Giordano. Yeah, that.
Giordano.
I was trying to do the Italian, like, to make myself say it right, and it just didn't work. So he's a senior vice president for Disney, and he was basically filmed undercover, just admitting that they've got to, with these roles that they're putting up, just sort of go against hiring white men. So it's a really interesting one about, like, the dynamics of that and how they're actually being biased, like the conscious bias.
So he's saying we are purposely not hiring white men.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think we've got
racism.
I think we've got a clip. Let's have a look and see what he says.
There have been times where, you know, there's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Just kind of unspoken.
There are times when it's spoken, but...
How would they say it?
There's no way we're hiring a white male person.
Like straight to you? Or okay.
They'd be very careful how they message that to agents.
Again, I'll throw it back at you. Replace that word white with the word black. There would be an absolute outrage.
Oh, totally.
And it's racism. How's it not racism? Of course.
He starts to go into it, but it's basically using like buzzwords, keywords, where everyone is aware, because if it's being written down, they are being careful.
So this looks like some kind of undercover sting or something.
Yeah, so it's not to be caught. But they'll write to an agency or something that they're not looking for the usual suspects.
Right.
So that would be the buzzword for a white male.
Yeah.
So it's true then, there is institutional racism in our institutions. There is structural racism.
Well, absolutely.
But it's anti-white. You know? And far from there being white privilege, there's actually now, black and brown privilege.
And of course, the senior vice president of Disney is in fact white. So I wonder if he should remove himself from that.
I also love there was
nominate somebody else.
Said he won't.
No.
There was a brilliant write-up about it in the Washington Times, and it said that it may no longer be a place at the Walt Disney Company for guys like Dopey, Sneezy, Doc, Peter Pan, Woody, or Buzz Lightyear. They're all white.
Unbelievable.
Male.
I know. They're actually toys, I mean...
Well, I don't know about you, Mike. I feel particularly oppressed. I think, white, middle-aged, straight men, we are the most oppressed demographic in the world, aren't we?
Are you going with that, are you? Yeah. No, I'm just joking. No, but I mean, apparently he's also been caught saying, this guy, that they didn't hire one particular black actor because he wasn't black enough. There you go, sorry? What are you talking about? So we've got a sliding scale.
The agency is kind of putting forward and negotiating, if they're using this kind of terminology to sort of suggest, block this person from the audition process or the interview process.
Right.
It must be really...
I mean, there's no question that this is going on. I mean, you can see it. Nobody will admit it. How did we end up with a gay black Doctor Who?
Well, and a black Snow White.
Yeah.
This is it's real woke prejudice, and it's insidious.
But it's not just woke, no, it's over-engineered. It's being done as a purposeful piece of engineering. It's not just, hey, we interviewed or auditioned 5 people and it happened to be that the black actress was the best Snow White. Brilliant, great, fill your boots. It's not that, is it?
No.
It's, we will only have a black actress
of course
as Snow White.
But I don't think it doesn't help anyone in the debate, because if the people
who... in itself divisive, isn't it?
Yeah, because then people will suggest, actually, no, were you the best? They might even think themselves, was I the best person for the job, or did I just tick that box?
People would say, but look, there's 5 white people talking about, how black people are getting too many jobs in acting, which is not what we're saying at all, actually. But any kind of discrimination surely is wrong.
Yeah.
There are some people, though, in the black community who will say, no, actually, positive discrimination for black people is necessary.
Well, they'll say that people like you and I in particular are not qualified to talk about women or race.
No, we can't.
We're not allowed to do that.
Because we're not women. Apparently.
There's nothing wrong with
being... could be if we want.
Yeah, it could be.
There's
I could just
wrong
identify as one for a couple of hours.
You can be inclusive, but it's when you use this sort of language where it's okay to attack white males.
Yeah.
I think
that's
every
acceptable.
situation, though, shouldn't you just replace, what you're talking about with, whether it's a different race or a different gender?
But hang on,
do you have the same reaction about that?
Of course it does.
Isn't any discrimination, whether it's positive discrimination or not. Any discrimination is
but except there is this school of thought which says because there was so much discrimination in the other direction before, now you have to redress the balance. It's like the slavery
argument. For how long exactly? A couple hundred years?
As long as you like, because it's been going on for so long.
America,
I mean, that's the argument about slavery, isn't it? That because, we were the oppressor for so long, now we should be oppressed.
But the pendulum has swung so far, I mean, if you wanted to watch a 2-hour movie and look at the commercial, have a shot every time you see a white person in the commercial break, you'll still be sober at the end of that film. We've gone to a point now where diversity is being represented far out of scale with the proportion that they are in the wider population.
Right.
Do you think it will then move backwards, or do you just... I mean, that's...
I think with the Labour government, I think at least 10 to 15 years of it not going back,
And Hollywood, Hollywood is about as woke as you get, isn't it? I mean, look at all the people who now no longer really feel that they can even work in Hollywood.
Yeah. But then you look at what's happening in Europe in terms of voter intention. It's the rise of the centre right, and I said centre. It's not far right. It's not hard right. The rise of the centre right. That's what's happening. That's the reaction.
Yes.
Maybe we'll see that here eventually.
But that's a bottom-up revolution. The whole issue with the woke world, it's been a top-down elitist revolution imposed upon us by Hollywood, by
people like Michael Giordano.
Yes.
But for them to be saying all this is what they're saying behind when they don't think anyone's listening.
Right.
That's what they don't believe what they're even doing.
Right.
They at least have a bit of they have no conviction on it, but they're still doing it, and it's that kind of fakeness that drives me mad. Just if you're going to believe in something or do something, act on it, then believe in it.
Yes,
have a conviction.
Absolutely right. A bit like the leader of the Green Party came out this week and said that she has a gas boiler.
Yes.
She hasn't got around to replacing it with a heat pump, but she's got some quotes coming in. So
it's a bit awkward, isn't it?
The election came as a bit of a surprise to her.
That's happened so much this election.
They will always praise the new secular religion in public, but in private their behaviour will be so different. And with anyone pious, you can always find find the hypocrisy. Always.
Yeah. There was a guy, I think, in the papers this week who had been demonstrated against at some event that he was at, and he said, funnily enough, I'd driven there in my electric car, and it was a climate protest. I'd driven there in my electric car. These people were outside, having arrived in a diesel-powered bus, demonstrating against me because I'm killing the planet.
Like Emma Thompson on a yacht on her first-class travel all over again.
Another mention for Emma Thompson, that's good, yeah. She's not an official plank, but she could be sort of addendum. Yes. Right, coming up, we're going to come to the end very soon. I'm going to talk about football next on Plank of the Week. Here are the constituents for Central Suffolk and North Ipswich. Patrick Spencer, Conservative and Unionist Party. Kevin Craig, Labour Party. Tony Gould, Reform UK. Brett Alistair Mickleborough, Liberal Democrats. Charlie Cager, Independent. Dan Pratt, Green Party. Mike Hallett, Independent. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. Well, you would think that after the third week, is it, of the Euros, the football might have got a mention. But it sort of didn't. I mean, Gary Lineker got mentioned last week. But this week, I think I've got to make it Gareth Southgate.
Yeah.
Because we're filming this currently just after the group stages ended. England have made it into the final 16. They're going to play Slovakia on Sunday afternoon, about 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. But they have been absolutely dire and absolutely woeful. And even Gary Lineker, to be fair, called them shit. In his own podcast, right? And then got into a lot of trouble with Harry Kane. Harry Kane said, no, talk to me like that. And Harry Kane apparently said that he should support the team. And you go, well, no, he can't support the team. They've scored one goal.
Yeah, not at any cost.
In 3 games, haven't they?
Yeah. Support them on merit, but not blindly.
No.
Yeah.
And they specialise in kicking the ball backwards.
Well, they've had one good half in 3 matches, which was the first half that they played against Serbia. Yeah.
First 20 minutes.
And then the wheels fell off. I don't know what happened.
First 20 minutes until they scored.
Yeah.
And as soon as they scored, that was the end.
Yeah.
Harry Kane has also come out and said at various points that they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So he actually said that nobody knows which position they're pressing. Nobody knows which way when to go forward, who's playing where.
So what's the criticism? The criticism is Southgate playing it safe, which, I mean, OK, he could argue, well, I've got us through to the next stages. Lucky for him, it's Slovakia and not Germany, France, Spain or Italy.
And they have they've been very lucky because apparently they won't play any of those teams. I was just listening to someone on TalkSport. They won't play any of those teams until the final, probably. Yeah. The most likely sort of game against the Netherlands would be in the semi-final.
Yeah.
They won't get Germany or France or Italy.
Yeah.
They might get Italy, I think, but after Slovakia. But I'm not convinced they'll beat Slovakia.
No, maybe not. Look, Southgate is definitely a big part of the problem. Of course he is. But you and I were talking about this at the end of your show the other day. I actually also think, obviously, it's the players. And I think the players are a bunch of prima donnas. They'd rather be sitting there looking at their new watches and thinking about the Lamborghini they've just ordered and rather be on holiday in the Caribbean or on Emma Thompson's yacht. Frankly, I've done it again.
I thought you were going to say on Emma Thompson for a minute. I don't think they're on that.
No, I think they'd rather be there. I don't think they're very patriotic.
Well, Phil Foden, right? Who is one of the greatest players that Manchester City have got, who sort of turned into a massive dud playing for England. He's come home for the birth of his 3rd child. And I said, football's coming out. You said, might as well bring the rest of them back as well while you're at it.
I think it's been very disappointing, but I am, for one, not surprised. I just don't think we're very good. People think we are, and we get this, it's coming home thing.
They've got some good players, though. Jude Bellingham won the Champions League, and he's a brilliant player, but after 3 games playing for Southgate, he looks
maybe
like a
not.
as well.
Again, as you say, not together. That's the trouble. They don't know how to play as a team.
No, but I think none of them know what they're doing because he's not telling them what to do. Yeah. And most good football teams have got a great coach.
Yeah,
right?
But he's also not
whether
very.
Whether it's Jose Mourinho, whether it's Pep Guardiola, these kind of people.
He's not very feared, is he? And I do think that if you go back to the days of Alex Ferguson and people like that, I think you've got to be feared as a coach because otherwise these guys come off the pitch, they think. So what? We didn't do very well.
He's more interested in making sure that they've got their own scent in the rooms that they're staying in, and they've got all sorts of coaches that are helping them with their mental health and making sure they're all wearing cardigans because that's the the trend. It's just ridiculous.
So he's nannying them and mollycoddling them.
Yeah.
And surprise, surprise! Look where it ends up.
And when they miss penalties, it's because they're getting racist abuse on Twitter. Well, it's not actually. It's because they missed the penalties.
It's because they're rubbish.
Yeah.
Did you see in the African nations, the Ivory Coast were absolutely ruthless? They fired their coach halfway through the tournament.
Did they?
And then actually won.
Right.
There you go.
Well, somebody said to me in a tweet this week that when they were watching the last game against who was it? Slovenia. That halfway through the game there should have been a tannoy message to say taxi for Mr. Southgate, and just whip it off.
And you could have grabbed anyone out the crowd to do the job instead.
They were chucking beer at him. They were booing. I mean, and also part of it for me is that, you know, if you go to watch football, and particularly the Euros and the World Cup, lots of people watch it in the pub, loads of people go out from offices and things, and they're not big football fans, but they just get behind England. And it's so dull.
Yeah.
You can't, you know, it's meant to be entertaining. It's
but
not
you
just...
imagine the money that some of these fans have spent as well to
well,
go
you know,
and support
also,
their side.
Southgate is the highest paid manager at the Euros.
What's he on, 5?
5 million a year.
5 million a year.
The atmosphere has been as flat as Gareth Southgate's personality,
yeah.
in my opinion. But I think, from my kind of football knowledge that I've got loads of, I think that the reason it's so flat this year is actually because we're missing Jack Grealish. We're missing looking at him running in his shorts.
Women love him, don't they? Even Julie Hartley-Brewer knows who Jack Grealish is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, honestly, when it was said that he wasn't going,
that's typical of Southgate.
That's
typical of Southgate, isn't it? To not pick Jack Grealish because he doesn't really like him much, because he's a bit of a rebel and, you know, likes to drink, but, you know, he's a character.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It was a god a year ago.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that he was like they were saying Jack Grealish is on loan to Wayne Lineker's bar in Ibiza for the summer.
That's exactly what he's going to be doing.
Yeah.
I think there's only one winner this week, and I think it has to be David Tennant. You know?
Yes,
I think David Tennant has made not only a plank of himself, but he's made a plank of the entire sort of Doctor Who franchise.
He is a massive muppet.
He is. Muppet of the week. In a word. So, yeah, there we go. I'm going to lift this up and put it down again. Very good. We actually worked there, so thank you very much indeed.
Well done, Candice.
Well done, Candice. Well done, Russell. Well done, Rafe. Well done, Amanda. Thank you very much indeed. They're all very good. We'll see you at the same time next week. Plank of the week.